Joining me now is William Sheriff, the Executive Chair of enCore Energy. Great to see you again.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Lots to get to. So first off, a few months ago, I guess it was, the team put in this new program all about efficiency and speed as well. So you want to cut the time it takes to put in a well, add more rigs, increase extraction rates. And then in Q2, the proof was in the pudding. Extraction rates rose 79% from the previous quarter. So what prompted this sense of urgency?
Well, unlike most companies that are restarting fields working on projects that have been looked at before, where you have a slow, problems getting communication in the well field, moving the fluids through. In South Texas, our recovery rates are phenomenal. What might take 12 to 18 months in another jurisdiction, perhaps Wyoming, where you have more mature sandstones, we get 90% of our extraction. We get of the total extraction we're going to get in the first 4 or 5 months, which is great. You get positive cash flow coming out of the well field very quickly, not for the corporation necessarily, but for the well field. But you have to drill like crazy on the front end to maintain that. Otherwise, you end up getting ski slope production curves. And, about the time it bottoms out, you start again. Where ideally, you're going to be dealing with this, but if you have the right number of drill rigs and can keep the momentum going, you end up with more of a sawtooth pattern, where your decline's never very much. And hopefully that sawtooth pattern's in an upward direction where you're even staying ahead of it and increasing production. And that's what we've been able to achieve at enCore. We've actually dropped our average number of days to get a well into production, be it an extractor or an injector, from around 7 days to just over 1 day.
Wow.
And that's really the key to efficiency, because the production wells have a direct correlation to the amount you're producing, obviously, because you're running more fluids through the plant, et cetera.
And all of your employees, everybody's on board and everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing?
We're really happy with the changes we've seen, and morale is very strong. We've always maintained that our personnel are our biggest and best strength in the company. We've been 4 decades in nuclear power in the U.S. without a whole lot of new input. And now suddenly it's changing. So we're missing 2 or 3 generations of new talent. So we've always held on to more than our fair share of talent, and we continue to do so. We were able to make those changes in the first part of March without any outside hires, all through internal promotion, which really illustrated the strength of the bench. And we've made a few replacements to infill in the back since then, but we're back at full strength and ready to take on the next project.
Great. So, William, big news today: the U.S. government fast tracking your project in South Dakota. This is critical minerals, correct?
It is, and there's a bit of debate on what's a critical mineral, because there's several different lists, be it the USGS or the government, different departments of the government. But nonetheless, the Fast 41 program, which fast tracks a number of different projects, has included uranium now, and we were just named recently to the fast track for our South Dakota Dewey Burdock project, which is great because you have a lead agency with the federal government that will take care of all the government and coordinate the state, everything into one direction, so that you don't get cross currents. And they are responsible for meeting timelines. They instill that responsibility down chain to the other entities that are involved. Now, Dewey Burdock, we have our NRC license. We're in timely renewal on that. But we need the coordinated effort to really get there and of course, bring the state along as well. And it's very important, and it's the first time we've seen anything like that. I've always said that we don't really need a lot of help from the federal government, just kind of get out of our way. And this is really an ideal situation. It's going to cut the timeline dramatically, we think, and we'll see that come into fruition. The one thing that everyone should be aware of, though, is it requires work on our part, too. We have to meet the thresholds on our side, or you're kicked out of the Fast 41 program. And that's something I think a lot of people aren't aware of. So, in this instance, we have 60 days from the day they announce it in a very transparent measure. We actually learned we were part of it at the same time the public did in the news release.
Oh, okay.
And so that transparency is great. And there's a website you can go on and monitor the progress of both the government side and the company side. And it's critical that we, within 60 days, have a full plan laid out for them in terms of how we plan to advance the project. And we have a large number of deliverables. Failure to meet those, and you're out of the program. So it's not just an easy street, but it's certainly a much needed reform in the permitting process.
That's great. And it sounds like there'll be some urgency there as well. So speaking of governments in the uranium sector and companies and regulators, you said a while ago that There's a lot of momentum, but not a lot of coordination. But is that changing, would you say?
I think that exactly plays into what we're just talking about. Is there is now a lot more coordination on the federal level now. All of our operations to date have been in Texas, which has been a real benefit for us because there are several states that are agreement states, and that, in a nutshell, means they've made arrangements with the NRC to essentially implement their rule book under the NRC's guidance and training for a number of years in order to become an agreement state. But to this point, we've had a number of permits issued through the TCEQ in Texas, which have all been in under 3-year time frame. Some of them as quickly as 17 months. And when you can permit any sort of radioactivity material in that sort of time frame, it's probably better than you can do a parking lot in a big city. So we're very happy to be in Texas with that. But we're also quite relieved to see the more coordinated effort at the federal level on the non-agreement states. Big plus for the industry and us in particular.
On the financial side, enCore recently raised $150 million. It was an upsized convertible note offering. So how would you describe the demand? What are you going to use the money for? How's your cash position?
Sure. Well, I tell you, it's amazing that you can get money in the convertible market at almost government rates. And after we upsized it, we were still almost 3 times oversubscribed. Near a $500 million order book on that. So the demand is clearly there. The interest is in convertibles, but more so in critical metals such as uranium and the nuclear cycle in general. So you're seeing a lot of that money come in. For us, it was compelling because we made application, and we did expect to be included in the fast track for Dewey Burdock. If we're going to be in production as we hope to in 28, then we need to be very aggressive in terms of condemnation drilling, engineering design work on the plant. I mean, it's only 2 years away, 2 years and a quarter away. So it seems like a long time, but it's actually very short. So we've got a lot of work to do. That covered that. We also have a lot of expansion we want to do at Alta Mesa, our key project in South Texas that's driving our production now, where we've just recently acquired the down dip neighboring extension to our current well fields and past producing well fields on Alta Mesa. Property immediately to the east, named Alta Mesa East or Tacubaya. We're shortening that to Alta Mesa East. And we've got historic drilling by Chevron that shows commercially viable uranium in 5 different sands. This would continue. We have them in 7 different sands on the west side. The down dip extension, the well field may be a little bit deeper on that side, maybe 50 to 100 foot deeper as we go down dip, but a highly promising area that we're hopeful we'll start drilling there in October to follow up. But it's taken us over 2 years to get that piece of land, and it's incredibly good news for the Alta Mesa project and the longevity of it. We look to make a decision on bringing on the 3rd ion exchange circuit at Alta Mesa, which would increase the capacity from 1 million pounds a year to 1.5 million. Now that is also part of the funding. It'll take $3 or $4 million to do that. Take 3 or 4 months to bring it up to that standard. And with this new property to the east, we're optimistic that we'll have the feed to do that and make that decision and see that come online in early 26 to mid 26. So.
Great. And what about Upper Spring Creek? Are they planning production later this year or early next?
Yeah, and that's the key. Everybody wants to know exactly when you're going to flip the switch.
Yeah.
And while our permitting crystal ball is pretty good in Texas, it's still somewhat opaque. And I can't tell you exactly when, but we're very optimistic that we'll receive. We've already got permits, and we're actually already under construction. The infrastructure is there, should be done sometime around the end of October. And we'd announced that publicly, we'd begin doing that. We're still missing a permit in terms of one of the deep injection well permits. Won't inhibit us from startup, but it's certainly a lot more economic if we have that. And as such, it probably won't start until we get that final permit. Now, the difference is if we get it sometime during the remainder of September, we'll actually start seeing a good likelihood of ramp up production this year in December. Whereas if we get it at the end of December, then we'll be ramping up in February. So it makes a big difference in terms of hitting our production next year, or versus getting a little extra production this year.
Right.
And,
All right.
And we're highly confident, but within that time frame parameter, we just can't tell you exactly what date.
Other news today, you have a new CFO, and I understand you've narrowed down the CEO search, and you have had that person ready to go. You're just negotiating, correct?
Well, I don't know if it's ready to go until the ink's fire, but we'd announced a process, and we're certainly nearing the end of that process. And we're very glad to have Kevin join us as CFO, as we announced. I believe he starts October 1st, but the announcement was made today. Really brings some serious horsepower to that office, and I think we'll need that as the industry progresses, and certainly as enCore does as well.
And just lastly, we have a generally favorable backdrop that you've been talking about in nuclear and uranium. So can you summarize your thoughts, give us the overall nutshell investment case for enCore Energy, but also I understand you think the sector's ripe for some M&A as well.
I do. I think the sector's screaming out for it. We have 3 or 4 companies that look a lot like ourselves, with our current run rate and theirs. But we're all spending a tremendous amount of G&A getting bigger. And, while the cash flow is teetered on positive in the first quarter, we were negative because we changed over to GAAP from IFRS, but because we're a U.S. reporting issuer now. But second quarter, we'd only made 1 delivery. So our revenue is quite chunky while our expenditures are daily. But the bulk of our deliveries this year come in the second half. So those are our paydays, is when we deliver the material. And so we're quite optimistic that we'll see a noticeable and distinct improvement in cash flow the second half of this year. But still, getting to profit is going to be the objective. And positive cash flow is great, but with the heavy G&A, you've really got to look towards profit. And all these look-alike companies that all have an advantage here and advantage there. Our big advantage, obviously, is where we operate and our deep, talented staff, and the ability to do what we said we'd do. In the light of a lot of questioning, it just screams out for consolidation, whereby you end up increasing your G&A modestly, maybe 15%, and yet you double your production. And that's the way to vault into an immediate position of profit. And if you do 2 or 3 of those, suddenly you gain size, you gain mass, you've hit the radar screens of the generalist funds, which incidentally we did a very, very good job of during our convertible note offering. That was an entirely new sector of generalists, almost entirely, that came in there. I was familiar with 2 of some 20 participants in the placement. So that opened some new doors for us. But, size is important. And, to amass a profitable enterprise with the positive cash flow being the first step, certainly a good objective. So basically I have 3 ways of growing, either generically, through M&A, or through both. And we're going to take a real hard look and have a good history of being in the latter category of employing generic growth along with the M&A opportunities.
Right. And just last question for you. So in an M&A scenario, do you see yourself as predator, prey? You're looking for mergers?
Well, I think, a lot of that is dictated by the market and by the people that are participating. Our first company, Energy Metals Corp., going back to the 04-08 timeframe, we'd completed 5 M&As over a 30-month period, and the 6th one was when we were acquired by Uranium One. So we've done 3 of those similar transactions in the last 3 years at enCore, 3 or 4 years. And so we always keep an eye on it. And certainly now with our increased production, as you mentioned, puts us in a much better position to take a good hard look at some of these opportunities.
That was a great update. Very informative.
Thank you.
Great stuff, William.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, good stuff. William Sheriff, Executive Chair at enCore Energy.